Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. My setup looks weird. There we go. Awesome. This is the weekly live stream where we talk about entrepreneurship. So side hustles, running your own business, business in general, that kind of thing. If you have any kind of aspirations to learn business, to understand money, understand how to make money directly, this is the live stream to watch. Special shout out, as always, to my super thanks donors, to my YouTube channel members. Membership has its privileges. To my Patreons and to my participants. That's you. Thank you for being here. This is interactive, so that means that if you're seeing my face, you should see a chat box somewhere nearby. Get in the chat and ask me questions. Let me know what you're wondering about. Let me know what you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. I see it says Brian Bowerman has joined. So thank you to Brian Bowerman. You are awesome, Brian. Thank you for being here also. And the topic today, the title of today's stream is How to Learn Business. This is episode number 73 of Side Hustle Ideas. Thank you for joining me. And I see that there's already 12 people here, so thank you. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this topic, and then I'm going to take questions. I may take questions amongst talking about the topic, if there's any relevant questions at the time. But yeah, this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I believe that everybody will benefit from learning at least the basics of business. I look around and I see a lot of people in this world, either people that are kind of close to me that I know is, in the real world, or further away from me that I see in the virtual world, that are at a disadvantage because clearly they don't understand a few basic principles of business, including things like economics and stuff like that. And that leads to, things not going your way. If you believe something that is false, I think that sooner or later you will see, what do they call it? Cognitive dissonance, where it's like, your opinions and your thoughts and what you accept to be true doesn't jive with what you see actually occurring out in the real world, whether it's stuff happening to you or stuff happening to other people. Eventually you will notice this, and if it gets really severe, it causes you to question your assumptions of what you think is true. So I see this all the time with business. I see people, whether they're making decisions about their career or they're trying to understand how the economy works or how they fit into the economy and, stuff like this. Or it could be, how to manage your money and how to manage debt and assets and savings and all that kind of stuff. Whatever context it's in, I see people that just don't understand these basic principles, and it's hurting them and it's holding them back. So if I could sort of influence anyone, I would basically get people to try and reevaluate how much you know about business, and even if you have no interest in it directly, learn some of the basic principles and they will help you in your life just by living in the world. Okay, so let's get into this. Our topic today is how to learn business. So I put together a couple of basic principles on this. How do we learn business? Well, business is kind of interesting. There's a theoretical component, obviously. You learn the principles. And then there's a practical component. You go out and you see how it actually works in a certain context. So that could be a certain industry, right? Or it could be a certain area in which you're interested, okay? So you've got the theory, you've got the practical. And a lot of people would agree that there's a certain component of continual improvement. Now, that's a distant third as far as I'm concerned. The bottom line is that you need the theory and you need the practice. And both will be very, very insightful. Both will be very revealing, and they will benefit you, okay? Now, like a lot of people, many years ago, I was exposed to some of the more popular business books, the sort of bestseller type books. And it seems to me that a lot of people either they get referred to these books, or they independently arrive at the conclusion that the way to learn business is to go buy some coffee table books or some bestseller books and read them, and that will teach me business. Now, in order to address this, I'm going to pick an example that a lot of people seem to be talking about these days, and that is the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book or book series. What was the guy who did it? Robert Kiyosaki? If that's how you say his name? I did read this book like back in the day, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. And because everybody at the time was talking about it, and I'm not sure why. I guess it was very popular. But a lot of people who didn't know anything about business, motivated by perhaps like the whole get rich quick thing, were going out and buying these type of books, including this one, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and reading it and coming away with the lessons in that book. Now, I read the book, and what I could say at the time was that some of the stuff, like the content in that book, to me, seemed very, very fishy, very suspicious. Because, as I recall, and this is like, I'm trying to remember something that I read 15 years ago, I walked away thinking, this guy is ignoring a lot of the fundamental principles of finance. The book was about like real estate investment and stuff like that. You know, go to real estate auctions and buy a property cheap and then, you know, turn around and sell it, or, you know, whatever. And leverage yourself right up, like, you know, borrow money to do this and then buy stuff with it. And then, you know, you could turn it around and sell it. And, you know, it was stuff of that nature. And I remember thinking, like, this is very dangerous, because this person is talking about getting returns, but they're ignoring the concept of risk, which is like a fundamental thing in finance. And if you know the basics of finance, you know that risk and return are kind of inseparable. They go hand in hand. Whenever you talk about what you're going to do in the future with money, what you could do and how it might turn out, you have these two things that are inseparable: return, like what could happen, and risk, the likelihood that it could happen. Because you know, things can happen, right? You know, when you plan what you're going to do in the future, there's not 100% chance that it's going to occur the way you imagine it is, right? That's a concept of risk. And in finance, they abstract this concept and say, look, you can't predict what's going to happen. It's going to be random. And then they analyze the real world with this assumption. It's almost like the principle of statistics. You have what you're expected to get, and then you have a variance, like a standard deviation from, you know, the likelihood of it happening. So anyway, this book, it ignored the concept of risk. So it was very dangerous. This person was recommending that people go out and do these very, very risky things that could easily turn south for them. But the impression I got was that they completely ignored the concept of risk and the likelihood that things may not turn out like that. And if if something happens that you're not predicting, this could be a major, major mistake that you're advising people to do. But everyone in the world was talking about this. I had people come up to me that didn't know much about business. They weren't managers, but they were entrepreneur types. They were coming up to me and they were saying, "Have you read this book?" And I was saying, "Yeah." You know, and they were just high on the concepts that were put forward in this book. And I did not like that. And I felt that's not a good way to learn business. And when you look into this stuff, at least if you're me, you form the opinion that it's always been like this. There's always a flavor of the month, you know, trendy business person that has a seemingly new business idea. The idea is half-baked. It does not fully embrace the fundamental principles of business, but yet it's super popular, and a lot of people who don't know any better follow them and they follow them right off the edge of a cliff sometimes. So I would not recommend that's how anyone learns business. I've always been an advocate of like, go to the source, go to the legitimate knowledge that has been around forever. It's peer reviewed. It's accepted the world over. It's taught in universities the world over. It's not controversial in any way. It's established. It's established as knowledge. So that's what I recommend. That's where people should go to get their knowledge of business theory, in my opinion. What are some other ways you could learn business? There's a lot of courses out there. Now, I looked this up. There's stuff on Coursera, Udemy, edX, if that's what you call it, and a whole ton of others, LinkedIn. Now, I'm sure that some stuff out there is good and some stuff out there is bad. I've seen a few things that are bad, or being kind, very incomplete, let's put it that way. But same thing again, I think that a lot of people write their own sort of flavor of the month kind of theories that are just somebody, it's almost like writing fiction. Someone just creates something and then packages it, makes all these promises, and then sells it. Now, this is going to sound terrible, but as you can see, you guys know that I have a course for that, so I'm going to put that forward. In my opinion, this is the best thing you would do. I created this for the express purpose of teaching people business. For $100, you're getting access to the same knowledge that people teach in universities, because this course is basically a reading list where you read several textbooks that are used in universities where they teach business all over the world, including Harvard Business School. So you're not getting my sort of take on business. You're getting the definitive material. You're ordering the books from Amazon, you're reading them. It's the same material you get when people study the stuff properly in university programs. And not Mickey Mouse university programs either, the gold standard university programs. Now, I provide videos that guide you through it, that give you my take on it, but you're getting the legitimate material. Okay, that's what I feel is the way to do this. And I've tried to make this accessible to people, and I've had a lot of people buy that course and take that course, and I've heard some great feedback from it. So that's what I'd recommend. So check that out. There's a link in the description if you're interested. Now, the other aspect of learning business is the practical side, because you might have heard this debated on the internet, right? Should I get formal business training, like getting like an MBA or something like that, right? Or should I just, get the school of hard knocks? Should I just start companies? Should I engage in business myself, and that will teach me how it's done? And this is like a debate that's been going on online. It's always online, right? This is a debate that's been going online for many, many years. Because just when you think, oh yeah, the right thing to do would be to go to school and learn something properly, occasionally you see celebrity type business people out in the world who famously don't have a business degree, they don't have an MBA, anything like that, but yet they're seemingly wildly successful, right? You get people like Elon Musk shooting their mouth off about like this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that everything he said is wrong. I'm not saying everything he said is right either. But my understanding, he doesn't have an MBA, but he is full of opinions about people who do have MBAs. That's great. What I would say is that in order to learn business, you have to do both. You have to know the theory, and you also have to know the practical side. You can't escape knowing either one of those. So anyone who says you don't need to go to school to learn business, to do business, is wrong. You can do business to a degree if you don't know any of the theory, but you are an exception, and you're very, very lucky because you're doing it in a very particular area where that is allowed. Okay? Put it that way. The thing that worked in the past also works now. You learned what people did in the past by watching them. You do it yourself. It still works now. Great. The moment they take you and they put you in a situation where what has worked no longer works, then you're screwed. That's where you need the theory. Conversely, anybody who says like, I've been in school all my life, I've never been out in the real world, but yet I know it all, they're equally wrong. There's the theory, and then there's how it's applied. And there's many, many principles that you learn, but they can be applied in many, many different ways. And some principles will take precedence over others in different situations. And that's where the practical stuff comes in, as well as like just knowing who can help you and how things are done, like all the little details of that industry, right? So there's no escaping the fact that you need both. So if you think you need both or you don't need both, I think you're wrong. And hopefully you realize the truth of this for your own sake, for the want of not making terrible mistakes. Hamza says, "What's up?" Yeah, I just did a video called "What's Up," and it's awesome. It's not even a minute long, but it's really, really good. You need to check that out as soon as you possibly can. Yeah. So, okay. Now this live stream is called Side Hustle Ideas. So we talk about side hustles. We talk about like how to get into business. The reason why a lot of people want to get into business is obviously to make money. Business is the scientific study of how to make money. That's what it is, right? And the smallest bite-size thing you can do to get into the world of business is doing a side hustle, where you keep your day job, you don't do anything that affects your primary income source, but just on the side, you attempt to create a business unit that makes money, right? And that's why I think side hustles are awesome. I think that most people should try them. And even if you fail, even if it doesn't go anywhere, you learn so much that will help you in your life. You will be able to see the real world the way it really is, or at least closer to the way it really is. And you will develop skills that really help you. Whether or not they directly relate to your current day job is immaterial. They will help you in life. So I highly encourage people to start side hustles. And the beautiful thing about a side hustle is that depending on your situation and depending what you choose, it doesn't have to cost you a penny, right? That's the great thing. As an extreme example, think of doing like something like a YouTube channel like I've got here. Does it cost you anything to get onto YouTube? No, it doesn't. Now, I'm assuming you have a computer and maybe a smartphone or one of the two. It would cost you nothing. You could just take your existing stuff and do it, right? If you need to get a camera or digital camera, okay, you might have very minimal cost to start doing it or something. But my point is that something like that is something anyone can really do. You have the capability of doing it. Whether you want to do it or whether you're psychologically ready to do it is another matter. Okay? But something like that, as an extreme example, you don't have to spend any money. It might take up your time. You might not have as much time to spend on your hobbies or your family, but it's something you can do. It doesn't jeopardize your day job, and it doesn't cost you really anything. So I highly recommend that people, investigate potentially doing a side hustle, maybe something connected to a hobby you have. So it almost kills two birds with one stone. You can do your hobby, but you could also learn this stuff, right? Learning by doing is an incredible thing. And this is a really long journey that will take you from essentially being ignorant and powerless, in a sense, to understanding how to create money, wealth, yourself directly without needing an employer to be the intermediary that turns your value into wealth or money, right? Most people, they have skills, they have value, but they can't turn that value into money directly. They need to go through an employer. They have an arrangement with an employer. And the employer turns your value into income. And they take a huge chunk of it and they give you a portion, right? So that's what a lot of people end up doing, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But if you want to step beyond that, I'd encourage you to step into this world. Another thing you can do to learn business, and this is often overlooked, is for you to get a job in an industry. And while you are working in that job, as your day job, okay, you are on the inside of an industry that you're maybe interested in, and you learn the inner workings of that industry while you're an employee for someone else. So you have this inside view, this access to being on the inside of this industry. You see how things are done. You see who are the players in it, and how do you, contact them and build relationships with them, and what's their role, and what are all the other players, and what are their roles, and how does it all fit together? You learn all that stuff from the inside. You're making money in a day job doing it, but you take advantage of that to learn this stuff. Now, if you wanted to work in that industry yourself, independently, this would be a real boon. You get all the answers. You can see how everything's done. So for you, if you wanted to start up your own entrepreneurial venture in that industry, you would have had a lot of experience and knowledge to draw from. So that's a great thing. Somebody says to me, I want to, start my own company in this field. And they're young and they've never worked in that field. And I would say to them, well, have you considered getting a job in that field? Get on the inside of it, learn how it's done. And it's great because you're making money while you're doing this. It's a real easy way to do things, rather than not getting a job, founding a startup or something, and then learning everything the hard way, trying to break into that business. But you don't know anybody. You don't know how things are done, right? Getting a job working on the inside of an industry is a really valid way in. You don't do it forever, obviously. You do it for maybe 6 months, maybe a year, whatever you need, a couple of years even. Maybe you move around, and then you're ready to start your own kind of venture. I'm just going to finish this point and we'll get right to questions. I see Hamza is in the chat. Okay, another aspect of learning business is the soft skills side. Now, this has been talked about in the context of if you go to business school, right? You've heard about people that go to fancy business schools like Harvard, right? Yale, whatever. And they come out not just learning, the theory of business or business principles, right? But they also come out with connections to other potentially useful, powerful people that can open doors for you, right? We've heard that cliche. Now, sometimes that's the case, sometimes it isn't. But what the business school can afford you is that if you have certain soft skills, like you understand how to network and how to build relationships with people and all this, then you can take advantage of being in close proximity to some of these people. They're the son of people or the daughter of people that own, companies and business empires and this kind of stuff. If you have the ability to take advantage of that situation, then it can open doors for you, right? It's not necessarily this nefarious thing that some people think it is. Some people who are on the outside of it that have never done it, so they don't know. It's not this, I'm going to do you favors because I know you thing. It's the fact that, if I have to choose between working with or hiring a stranger or working with or hiring somebody I know, all things being equal, I'm going to pick somebody I know because they are a known quantity. I know they're not crazy. I know they're not a criminal. I know they're not falsifying everything they say or lying right to my face about who they are. Whereas a stranger, those could still be possibilities, right? If you know someone, if you've been to school together, you also presumably have interacted with them. You know that they have a good work ethic. They know their stuff. They have the same business knowledge that maybe you do. You know things about them. So for that reason, they are less of a risk, okay? But for people who don't understand networking, they don't understand about building relationships, they don't care about that stuff, you squander that opportunity. So having soft skills, communication skills, leadership skills, things like this, those do matter. If you walk into a room and somebody starts talking to you, and within 10 seconds of talking to you, they conclude that, you don't know what you're doing, you're not very bright, you're not very capable, and I don't enjoy dealing with you. If that's the impression you give people, that's going to be a handicap. Conversely, if you have the opposite effect, that really opens doors. So that's another aspect of it. That's not something you learn in business school. That's something you learn by getting out in the world and practicing, for the most part. Like a lot of things, you learn the theory, but then you go out and practice. You do the practical side of it. Formal education. Some people do the formal education thing, which I advocate. The gold standard is a Master's of Business Administration. That's the gold standard. If you want to learn medicine, you go and get a medical medical degree. That's the de facto standard. You don't buy a coffee table book on acupuncture and then claim you can cure everything. You go out and you take the formal education, and then you are best equipped to deliver on the promises you make about understanding how to be a doctor and how to help people. Right? Business is the same way. Instead of kind of going out and just tinkering around, go and get the official full degree, which is an MBA. Now, there are other, what I would call subsidiary degrees. Not that they're necessarily less work or less valuable, it's just that they don't focus on business in general. They focus on one aspect of it. Things like PMP, for project management. If you want to be a project management professional, you can get a certification for that. If you want to be an accountant, you focus on accounting only. You don't focus on sales and marketing and quality and safety and operations and HR. You focus only on accounting, and you get an accounting certification. I'm not saying these are lesser in any way. They are just as valuable, if not more. But the point is that you're not learning all of business. You're learning a subset of it. Okay. So these are also possibilities, but be aware that if you a big flaw I've seen many people make, a mistake they make, is that they learn one element of business, whether it's project management or sales or accounting or finance or whatever, quality management, whatever. But they then believe that they understand it all. And they're wrong. And that can be dangerous. So don't fall into that trap. And the last thing I want to say about learning business, last element, is that this, for some people, this, I believe, should be a lifelong goal, or at least as long as your career is. You start when you're young, you learn more, and if you play your cards right, you can get to the point where you understand money, you understand wealth, you understand how to create wealth directly. You don't need an employer. You don't have to worry about being laid off. That's a thing of the past. And the goal is to be a wealthy person, someone who understands money. If you understand value and wealth, then that will serve you well. You'll end up being someone who owns assets instead of liabilities, so your money and wealth grows by default, rather than being in debt all the time and having it diminish by default. Wouldn't that be great? This can teach you how to do that. It's if you want to understand money and wealth, study the science of making money, and that will help you. So I encourage everyone to do this. And I'm here to facilitate people who want to jump into that world. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you. Now, let's go over to questions. I see Hamza is here, and Hamza's been very patient. They wrote me a question right at the beginning. Hamza says, I live in Norway, and I got back from my vacation in Qatar. I come to realize that it would be easier to start a business in the Middle East due to the cheap labor and low tax and massive consumer market. Okay, well, that's a possibility. The thing is, though, okay, Hamza, let's do a thought experiment here, okay? Now, let's pretend that that's true, okay? Like, it could be true, and I would not be surprised if it was. However, if that were true, why would people start businesses in Norway? Would it be entirely due to ignorance or to their inability to start them in Qatar? Is that the only reason why someone would start a business in Norway? I'm sure you would realize the answer is no, right? So there are certain advantages in starting in Norway, right? Because a lot of people are deciding to do that, right? It's not a sort of thing, a principle that applies across the board. Now, in certain industries, there might be some opportunities, definitely, where you can, you're from Norway or you live in Norway and you decide, okay, I'm going to open a business in Qatar. I'm going to take advantage of some business opportunities in Qatar, or I'm going to take advantage of certain business opportunities that are available to someone who's based in Norway, but operating in Qatar, okay, which there well could be, right? And yes, maybe there's cheap labor, low tax, that kind of stuff. But I would argue that the most important aspect of a business opportunity is not to do with slightly lower costs. It's to do with revenue opportunities. Okay, like you can make a lot of money with a model, right? Now, obviously you want your costs to be lower, but that's not the most important aspect. The most important aspect is, are you going to be successful? Can you sell your offering at a profit? And can you sell it at all? Those are the three big questions. So yeah, that's interesting. Hamza says, drop the link on the What's Up video, please. Well, okay, you see this, you can see where my fat finger is pointing right here. I've got two other subsidiary YouTube channels here, the Company's Expert 2, the Company's Expert 3. Go and subscribe to those, by the way. The Company's Expert 3, the latest video on that channel is this What's Up video, so you can easily go and see that. I think there's links to those in the description box of this live stream, or you could just type in the Company's Expert 3 and go right to it. Gabriel says, just saw you are online. Hopefully I'm not too late. No, you're never too late, Gabriel. And with all the talking I do, you're probably bored waiting for me to shut up so I can respond to your question. Thank you for being here. Hamza says, would you say that job seekers are like entrepreneurs and service providers? It's similar. Like, you can look at a job seeker as someone who's like a contractor, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a contract, a business arrangement with an employer, where they provide services to the employer in exchange for compensation, right? That's what employment is. So it's just a subset of being a contractor, which is one entity that you could be in the business world, right? So being, I don't know if you would qualify it as entrepreneur, but just being in business, technically it's entrepreneurship, but being in business involves many different things, one of which I suppose could be straight employment, right? Not a very interesting or challenging aspect of being in business, but it is a subset of what you could do. Like, for example, let's say you're an employee and that's what you've been your whole life. And let's say you're still young. There's plenty of time to switch up what you do. You could shift from being a straight employee to being a contractor. Instead of working full-time exclusively for an employer, you provide your services in contract form to many employers, right? Simultaneously, and you're not committed long-term to any one of them, right? So like you morph what you do slightly. You're still doing the same actual thing, but the arrangement and how you provide your services to an employer changes, right? Now, if you can change what you're doing to supply your services directly to a customer or a client, now it feels more like a business, right? Because you are not going through an intermediary, right? An employer is an intermediary. They stand between you and the customer who's paying for your value, like directly or indirectly. They pay the employer, and then the employer pays you in terms of like a salary or a wage or something like that, right? Okay, so some people are in a position where they could supply their services directly to an employer, or they could supply the exact same services directly to a customer or client. Lawyers would be an example of that, right? You can work as a lawyer inside a large corporation where you do your job dealing with legal issues, and they pay you a salary, right? You could do it that way. Or you could do exactly the same services, but provide those directly to clients if you have like your independent law practice, right? You know, and the independent law practice is a business. You're now an entrepreneur, okay? You know, so that would be one form of it. So yes, your statement is correct, Hamza. Technically, it is correct. I don't think a lot of employees regard themselves like that. But that is technically the truth. Up, down, down. My buddy there says, back in the job market. Oh, does that mean something didn't work out there? Up, down, down. I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see if we can fix that. Gabriel says, speaking about taxes, I really do not want to start any kind of business in Italy because once I go over 85,000 euros, I would have to change taxation policy, which would be pretty much destroy the business. Okay. Going from this to 40% once you pass 85. Okay. Yeah, there's different tax brackets and stuff. Well, the thing is, what you do, as I'm sure you know, Gabriel, is what you do is you do some financial projections. And these are going to be similar to what they do in like term sheets and stuff like that for investors. And what you do is you basically project, you know, how you can structure your business. So if you want to stay within a certain tax bracket, you know, you sort of project that and this is how much tax you're going to be paying and this is how much revenue you have coming in and this is how much you'll be able to retain, right? And then you'll have another scenario where you're saying, okay, let's see if we can grow the business 10% or something. It pushes us into this higher tax bracket, so we're paying more taxes, but our revenue is also going up. Now, at a certain point, it will make sense to be in that tax bracket. Even if you're less efficient, shall we say, you're paying a higher percentage, it still makes sense to be in that tax bracket because your absolute profit or something will be greater, right? So you figure out what those limits are, right? And it could be something saying like, okay, if I can make, I don't know, 100,000 revenue a year, I'd be in the lower bracket and that would make sense. But if I make between 100 and 110, I would end up the loser. I would make actual less retained earnings. But if I make more than 110, even though I'm in the higher tax bracket, I would still make more retained earnings than I would making less than 100,000, something like that. So you know this, and then you plan your business accordingly, right? You've got to think one step beyond this thinking where you say, I need to be less than this. You need to work some more projections out, and then you understand maybe the reality. So if I can only make 110, I'd be better off just making 100. But if I can make 120, then that's where I need to be and not just cap what I'm doing at 100. Hamza says, any business ideas? This is in what context? This was the Middle East thing. When you say the job seeker entrepreneurs and service providers. Yeah, like whatever services you provide. Like when you work as an employee, you're providing a service. You're providing your labor, you know. That could be knowledge work, like, you know, you sit behind a computer and a phone at a desk, communicating with people, delivering things to people, or you work with your hands. You know, you create something, you do manual labor, you have skilled abilities to use tools and to create something, right? You know, I mean, any or all of those, you know, would be possible. Gabriel says, the difference is massive. I will get the same amount of money from 85. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, like that stuff isn't particularly interesting, you know, to me. You just figure out what these are. You do some basic projections for you and you figure out what you need to do. And then based on whether you think you can achieve the revenue targets, that would inform your strategy, right? Hamza says, what I meant is that, oh, your video is titled Side Hustle. Yeah, the series is titled Side Hustle Ideas. I mean, well, listen, okay, I'll tell you what. Here, Hamza, let's figure this out. What industry are you in? What industry are you interested in? Let's start with that. Are you interested in coal mining? Are you interested in, video games? Are you interested in apparel manufacture? Are you interested in, safety consulting? Like what are you interested in? Let's start with that, and then we'll work some ideas from that. And who am I, and who is anyone else to tell you what would be the best idea for you? You've got to decide that for yourself. Now, what I can do is I can give you the formula of how you figure that out, but every person in the world will have a different answer to that based on what's right for them and what talents and interests they have and what knowledge and experience and training they've had, right? You got to take all that into account to figure out what's the right thing for you to do. And then you got to figure out what are the opportunities in that area and are they worth pursuing? So that's a lot of thinking work to do. Some of it you can do just by going inside yourself and figuring out what you want to do. Some of it requires data from outside. You have to go into the real world and look at like what opportunities are there, right? So the answer is going to be a distillation of all those things, right? Now I can help you with the process, but I can't give you an answer that's going to be right for you. And I don't agree with people that say, oh yeah, well, drop shipping is good and, you could always be a tutor and you could always teach courses online. No. Yeah, you could just open like the equivalent of the yellow pages and start going randomly through different occupations and say, you could do this or you could do that. It's like, that's unhelpful. You're not going to come up with something that makes sense for you by doing that. That's my opinion. That's my take on it. There's plenty of other people out there that will be able to rattle off some, things like YouTube channel. You could do a YouTube channel, but, if it's easy, there's a flip side to that. And that is that if it's easy for you, it's easy for everybody else. And you got a lot of competition, right? If it's less prominent and not as easy, obviously that's a challenge for you, but it's less prominent and less, easy for everyone else. So you have less competition. Maybe there's opportunities there. It's not as simple as people make it out to be. Gabriel says the difference is, okay, we did that. Hamza says, what I meant, so I thought maybe you would have business ideas. I have many business ideas, but are they right for you? No, they aren't. And how would I know what's right for you? Or the hundreds of people that watch these streams? I mean, we can easily bang off some ideas like I just said, but it's stupid because most people will not be right they will not go off and succeed. They will try it and fail. That's the problem. Clay mining, getting clay from the ground and sell it at the market. How do I know if they are worth pursuing and if there are opportunities? Well, okay, I'm assuming you picked clay mining because you know something about clay mining. You have some experience with clay mining, right? Okay, so my first question is, first of all, I'm also assuming you're passionate about it, right? Because whatever you pick, you have to have some interest in it. Because if you find it totally boring and tedious, you're not going to get very far. You have to have some inherent interest in the thing you're doing, because it's not going to be successful from day one, and it's going to look kind of depressing and pessimistic at times. So you have to have enough natural interest in it that you would want to persist, okay? So I'm making the assumption that that's how you feel about clay mining. Okay? Now, what have you done? What experience do you have with clay mining? Do you know nothing about it? Have you had a job where you work at a clay mine, or do you know anyone in your family that has done it? The first thing to do would be to learn that business, okay? So if you don't know anything about it, this is a totally new thing for you. what I'd recommend is you go out and do an informational interview with someone who knows about clay mining. Maybe somebody who runs a clay mining operation. And this is something that is very easy to do. If you know how to get an informational interview, you can do this. If you're an introvert, you don't like talking to people, you can set this up by using Google Maps and LinkedIn, okay? And if you want to know what that looks like, I have a link to a video where I show you how to do this with screenshots and everything. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. It talks about how to reach out to organizations, how to discover who does clay mining. You wouldn't, maybe you don't know that, but it can help you find who are the clay mining people around you. It can help you contact them and set up like an informational interview with them where you learn about it. And then you can ask these people anything you want. You know, where's this industry going? What are the opportunities? How do you do clay mining? How do you guys do clay mining? Right? Yes, I do love it. Okay, so this will be a labor of love. So if you're passionate about it, you start by talking to 20 people that are in the clay mining business. Either they own the companies, or they're at the top, or they're right at the bottom. They're doing the clay mining, right? How do you do it? Can you show me how to do it, or can you tell me about it? People in the middle. Can you give me a tour of your clay mining operation? If you're really passionate about this, and you want it to be like a lifelong thing, if that's where you're thinking of taking this, I would recommend you try and get a job in clay mining. Work a job for 6 months. You'll be on the inside of it. You'll learn everything there is to know about clay mining. You'll see how it's done from the inside out. And then you could use that knowledge to go in your own direction after that. Talk to the people who are up and down the supply chain for clay mining. Who are the people that buy the clay or whatever, after it's mined? Who are the people that process it? Who are the people that fashion it into a product that is then sold? And who are the customers or clients for that? Are they industrial customers, or are they, consumers? Like I don't know anything about clay mining, but this is what you would find out. This is all the people you would talk to. And in talking to them, and asking questions like saying, what are the opportunities that are coming down the pike for clay mining as an industry, in your opinion? By asking a question like that to all of these people, you will get some insights into that, right? And then when the person is right there in front of you and they say something like, well, I own a clay mining operation, but the problem is there's many different types of clay, and we don't always have the clay that our customers want. They don't just want one type of clay, they want many different types. While the person is right in front of you, you say something like, well, that's really interesting because I might be in a position to start up a small clay mining operation. Now, if I could supply you that type of clay, or whatever it is that they were talking about, would that be worth anything to you? Would that maybe be something that we should take the trouble to explore? Something like that. So that's how you can surface opportunities right there when you're talking to these people. Okay, I could go on, but I don't know anything about clay mining, but this is sort of like the general process of how you would get into it, how you would learn about it, how you would find opportunities in that, and how you would get the skills to exploit the opportunities. It's one way of doing it. There's other ways of doing it too, but this is one of the easier ways, where you just speak to people, you ask them questions, you talk to them, you learn. Right? So the answers you're going to get to those questions are going to be far better quality than I could ever give you, or any other influencer or type person could give you, because they can give you very general recommendations, but they probably don't know anything about clay mining, nor do they know about the aspects of it that you would really enjoy doing, or you would have any talent in doing, right? This is how you find out a custom solution that's tailored to you, right? Okay, Hamza says, my father is a ceramic artist and we buy clay with our clay supplier, and I'm a ceramic instructor. Okay, there is no clay mining in Norway, and there is in Germany and Spain, and even China and USA, but not my area. Okay. yeah, so like it's that kind of thinking. Hopefully you get the point, right? It's just very amateur and basic to say like, well, you could start a YouTube channel, you could do drop shipping, you could, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, chances are you will try those, one will try those and it won't work because it's not something you're interested in. It's not something you have any abilities in or even want to do. You know what I mean? Right? And the simpler something is and the easier it is to get started, what you can be sure of is the more competition you're going to have. So it kind of neutralizes the fact that it's simple to start, right? Okay, so I would encourage you, Hamza, to pursue this, to try and go out there and get answers to these. Start connecting with people in that business that can help you, that have knowledge that you would like to have. Everything you need to know to be the clay mining king is in the heads of these various players in that business, okay? Either people that do the mining themselves, or they work upstream or downstream of that in the value chain. So they don't mine the clay, but they buy the clay and then they use it to make a product, like you were saying, what you do. Is it something you do with your dad? Where was that? That was somewhere in here. Or like you mentioned being a ceramic instructor. So it's like you're connected to it, but you're not doing the mining, supplying, manufacturing, transporting, or selling of it. You're providing almost consulting services that are ancillary to that business. Something like that, right? You know what I mean? So you would talk to all these players at every level in industry if you wanted to really fully explore this and find any opportunities, right? And as you connect to them, they become your connection. So you have access to those people, right? And it builds. The perfect network engineer. Good evening, sir. Subhajit from India. Well, thank you, Subhajit. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so learning business is really a useful skill. Like imagine if you knew how to get any type of information and you could get it, and you can. It's just a question of, first of all, do you know what to do? And then if you know what to do, are you willing to put forth a little bit of effort to go and get it, right? Maybe it's Saturday and normally you'd have the day off and you could sit on your butt and you can watch TV or play video games or whatever you do, hang out with your friends. But instead you say, no, I'm going to go. I have a meeting booked with the owner of a clay mining operation nearby. And I'm going to go and I'm going to get dressed up in my fancy clothes and I'm going to go and meet with them on the Saturday. Instead of hanging out with my friends and partying and doing my hobbies and, just relaxing, I'm going to do that, right? A lot of people are unwilling to do that. And if you are willing to do it because you're passionate enough about it, then you have a real opportunity before you. You have a way to also beat people who might be smarter than you. They might have better education than you. They might have had better employment experience than you. But you can be the one that wins because you're willing to put in the time to do things like this, to learn. And if you keep doing that over the years, or as time passes, you will learn an incredible amount that will give you the edge. And then you can decide. You can go into business in clay mining and build your fortune that way, or you could just have your dream job if that's more of your goal. Like, I want to work in clay mining, but I don't know where the jobs are. I'm sure these people are hiring, but I never see any jobs posted. How do I get in? And you talk to them. Right? So it could go in many different ways. But this is just basic sort of networking skills and doing informational interviews that will open up a lot of doors for you. And you gain knowledge and you gain connections. Every person you meet, you end the meeting by saying, if I have any other questions in the future, would I be able to give you a call? Is that okay? And 99% of the time people say, sure. And they'll give you their card. Then here you go. Here's the CEO of a clay mining company. You got their card and you can call them up anytime. Not that you want to abuse that, but you can call them up in the future. I mean, that would be worth something, right? So this is one way in. Another way is if you're more extroverted, you go down to events, industry events. Maybe there's a clay mining association trade show or something where all the players in the clay mining industry, or maybe mining or something, they all have like a trade show. All the companies that sell mining equipment, all the institutional customers for mining are there. All the mines are there. All the mining services companies that service the mines are all there. This is like the center of that industry. And you go down and you bring a stack of business cards and you meet with all these people and you see the latest technology, the latest trends. You listen to a couple of keynote speeches or whatever, and then you go around and you meet all these people. You collect all their business cards. You call them up and you can ask them questions. Like there's other opportunities there, but that's more for more extroverted people. You'd have to be the type of person that enjoys going to industry association events and things. There's things like that happening in your town right now for all different industries that you never considered. So there's opportunities there too. And that's where you can like learn about opportunities and, of stuff you're interested in. So there you go. So hopefully that makes sense. We've reached the end of the chat. I see there's 26 people here. My microphone is kind of dropped down here. I'm just going to readjust this. Is this better? Now you can hear me a lot clearer. Get in the chat if you have any questions or anything like that. Something you're wondering, something you're wanting help with, let me know. If I don't get anything in the next sort of 30 seconds, I'll probably have to wind this down. But I highly encourage you, learn business. Like I said before, I've created my version of this, which is the best bang for the buck you're going to see for this kind of things, which is that, right? You want to learn business, this is a great way to do it. It's super cheap. If you're not interested, you're probably not going to persist with it. But if you are interested, this is a great opportunity. You learn all of the stuff that you would learn in a full-blown Masters of Business Administration course. Now, the beauty of doing it with my program is that there are no evaluations, there's no tests, there's no exams. If you just wanted to skim the material, just get a basic overview of like what everything is, you can do that. If, however, you did want to go really deep and get the same level of knowledge that you would have in, say, a university program, you can do that too. You can like read every page of every textbook. You can do every problem, every case study, right? There's answer keys and all this kind of stuff. You could go through that. If you're interested and you really want to learn it properly, you can do that too. But you don't have to. That's the thing. If you only have 1 hour a week to devote to this, that's fine. If you, however, are between jobs and you're on a bit of a sabbatical and you just want to do some training and you have 5 hours a day to do this, you can do that too. It's very flexible. It's on your own schedule. It's all on your own terms. And it's all for $100 US. So, I mean, if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for that type of solution, this allows you to learn the knowledge and get the same result that you would if you took a university program. You don't get the accredited certificate at the end. That's the catch. So you're not going to impress anyone with a piece of paper. But that's not what this is for. This is for people who want the knowledge specifically. That's the value for them, not the piece of paper so they can say they're valuable. There's a lot of people with MBAs out there. It's not this magic bullet that a lot of people think it is in terms of like your credibility. But if you just want the knowledge, I'm pointing the wrong way. This is the thing to get. Gabriel says, in your opinion, is it easy to create a legal entity in another country to avoid taxes? I have never tried to do that, so I probably wouldn't be the best person to ask. I don't think it's that hard, but I've never done it. I know a few people who I think have done that, so it doesn't seem that hard, but yeah. Gabriel says, once a business takes off. Yes, I mean, once a business takes off, when you have money coming in, you can do anything, right? You just, if you don't know how to do it, you just pay someone to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a challenge once you have money rolling in. D. Snyder is here. Right on, D. D says, I'm 50, starting over, making $50 an hour at a pharmacy. That's, I take it that you're not happy with that, D. You're hoping for something more. Yeah, you know, it depends with what your goals are. What are your goals, and what do you want to do? What do you see as the thing holding you back? Because if it's a lack of knowledge or education or training, you know, 50 isn't past it, you know, and I'm speaking as a 50-year-old. You're not past it. You got a lot of years left. You got a lot of energy left. You got a lot of time left. You know, you can still do some stuff. So, you know, listen, you know, life isn't all about, you know, jobs, right? There's other things in life, right? You know, we have relationships, we have children, we have, you know, other things. We have goals that don't involve making money directly. You have other accomplishments and things. Some people, you know, you have other challenges. It's not about like a goal that you have, some lofty goal. It's that you're struggling with a challenge that maybe most people don't have, you know? So there's other things that get in the way. And, you know, I know it's such a cliche. I'm so bad at giving life advice. I'm not trying to do that, but it's like that whole thing that, you know, the race is long and in the end it's only with yourself. That's true. I can tell you. You know, not to turn this into being all about me or anything, but it's like I threw away a corporate career because I was disgusted with it. That's why I do what I've been doing the last 10 years. You know, I've been on YouTube for about 5 years, and before that, and also right now, I do consulting and things because I was done working as a manager. You know what I mean? So stuff gets in the way, and sometimes our personalities get in the way, or our sense of ethics, however you want to look at it, right? You know what I mean? So don't compare yourself to other people. It's only with yourself. Now, what would you like to do? You know, if there's something there's a specific goal that you have, and you know, you can maybe sort of get an idea of what the roadmap is. If you need to go back to school or you need to do certain things, tack on some skills, you know. D. Snyder says, tell me to start a podcast. Appreciate your show. Hey, you know, like if you want to start a podcast, go for it. We were talking about stuff earlier in this stream where, you know, we're talking about examples of side hustles, things you could do, right? Now, I ironically don't know much about podcasts. I do these live streams, but I don't know about any other aspect of like the podcast world or ecosystem or how people make money with it. I'm not the guy to ask for that. But for example, if you were to try and start like, you know, a podcast, I imagine it's similar to a YouTube channel in that you're trying to build an audience. Now, if you build an audience, you're learning about how to appeal to people. When people hear you, they go, I like that. I'm tuning in and I'm going to be a regular listener, right? You learn about how to have that effect on people. Now, knowing how to do that can serve you well in other aspects of life too, right? If you know how to appeal to people, you could translate that into your career. You could like do job interviews for jobs and get the job because you appeal to the recruiter. Or you could start another type of business. Maybe, you know, I don't know, you start up by selling stuff out the back of your truck or something, or you open an online store or something, but you appeal to people and they start buying your stuff and you start building a bit of a business operation that's making you money. Whatever, these are skills that you tack on. So if you have a passion for doing a podcast or something like that, I wouldn't discourage you, from it. It can be the thing to help launch you on this trajectory. D says, trying to figure that out. Absolutely. I was kidding about them. Okay, no problem. But whatever it is, now listen, D, if you're wanting to share more, we could get into it. If you want to give me a bit more details, what do you think you need to do to be where you want to be? Where do you want to be? Let's start with that. And then next, if you could say what you think is the right path to get there, we could talk about that. Excuse me. Hamza says, when should someone consider getting funding in exchange for capital? Isn't it hard to get funding in the pre-seed stage? This is my advice to you, Hamza. This comes from about 25 years of consulting on startups and things in various capacities. Forget funding. Okay? It is a trap. See, what happens is you end up, there's several traps within this big trap. One is that it distracts you from the only question that matters when starting a business, which is, how can I become revenue positive, and then how can I generate a profit? Okay? How can I make money? When people give you financing, okay, now we're talking about startups. We're talking about something that you can do yourself as an individual. We're not talking about business in general. We're talking about startups, which is a subset of business. When somebody gives you money, either the government or a bank, like a lender, they lend you money. The biggest effect that has is it distracts you. It fools you into thinking that you're successful, which you are not. You would actually be more successful if you didn't take the money, because now you're in debt, right? Not only do you do not have money coming in through sales, but now you are in debt, okay? So you're even further behind. And what I've seen time and time again is that it lulls people into a false sense of security. They start blowing that money on stupid crap. They create websites, they rent themselves office space, they start hiring employees and other things, but yet they haven't made a cent, and they don't even know if their plan is going to succeed, if they're even on the right track. They don't know that yet. Okay, so that would be my advice. If you're a startup type situation, forget about funding, forget about financing, forget about investors or like all that stuff. Go out and try to make money. You don't need anything to try that. Like, for example, let me illustrate that. Go to some place on the internet, a group, a chat room, I don't know, some place where certain types of people congregate, right? And do a post, like an announcement, say, I have this, I'm selling this. Is anyone interested? Here's the thing you're getting. Here's how much it costs. Here's how to buy it. Here's, what's going on. It's like, this is a pre-sale, or whatever you want to call it. Just like you do at a store. You're not allowed to go into a store, take the product home with you and try it out before you pay. You have to pay up front, and then you're allowed to leave the store with it, right? If you're ordering something from Amazon, you have to pay up front, and then they'll send it to you, right? So you do the same thing. You say, okay, I've got this, I'm offering this. If you pay me now, then I will send you this in this amount of time, right? And see how many people buy it. Now, if nobody buys it, you don't even get like any questions or anything about it, like nothing. That tells you something. If, on the other hand, 15 people just bought it, like in advance, they said, I want that. Here's my money. And they paid you like $100 each or something like that, right? Now you have a much simpler problem. Now you have to now that you've received all this cash, now you have to deliver on your promise. You have to create this thing that you said, and then supply it, right? That's a lot easier of a challenge. At least you know that, there's a demand for this and there's a need for it, and you seem to have found somewhat of the right price point for it. You know what I mean? You're further along. So I would do something like that before I take any kind of financing or anything like that in the beginning, right? You still have the single biggest challenge ahead of you, which is, how do I make money, right? It complicates it when you're now in debt. It puts more pressure on you. You better figure this one out because you got to pay back your debt, right? So it's better not to have that. And if you're in like a desperate situation, you need money, I would just get a job. I wouldn't try any of this because it'll be less risky than doing something like this. This is only if you have a passion and a goal and you have time on your hands. D. Snyder says, Hamza says, so one-man show. Yeah, this is like, we're talking about like startups here. Obviously, investment is a thing. Obviously, taking out loans for businesses is a thing to finance certain things. I still believe what I kind of said about the startup thing. Too many businesses borrow too much. It becomes self-defeating. They end up working for the banks every bit as much as individuals do who are in debt. But the businesses are different because you get individuals cycling in and out of the business, so they're not there long enough for them to really care about the long term. There's all kinds of stuff there. Anyway, D. Snyder says, I was kidding about the podcast. Learn something new that won't be irrelevant in the next 5 years. Okay, that's a start. Do you have any more specifics? Like, okay, if you just gave me that and there was no other details, I would say learning soft skills like communication skills. That alone would fulfill this. So communication skills, you may not know this, or you might know this, but I'm going to assume you don't. Here's what it is for the people who don't know. It's easy to just blurt out your thoughts, okay? That's not what communication skills are. Have you ever been around a technical type person that they know what they're doing from a technical sense, but they're kind of a jerk, they're blunt, they're abrasive. You don't necessarily like being around them and talking to them because they're gruff. They don't make you feel particularly good. It's kind of, you feel a bit nervous dealing with them because they're blunt and they're direct, and they don't do things like say please and thank you. They don't pay attention to how you feel when you're talking to them. And you go away thinking like, I got my answer, but that wasn't fun. Right? Communication skills are the ability to communicate with somebody, first of all, so it's clear, but also so that the other person goes away having enjoyed the encounter. And they think you're awesome. Right? For example, let's say you're at work and you have a coworker and you have a technical question. Hey, John, how do I do this? And John turns around and he says, well, like, really? I'm in the middle of stuff. You're asking me a question? Okay, listen, here's what you do. You do this, okay? Right, now go away. You got your answer, right? That's bad communication skills. If you turn to John and you say, hey, John, how do I do this? And John says, oh, you're struggling with that too. Okay, no problem. Listen, a lot of people have that problem. Here's how you do it. You do this. Does that make sense? Right? You got that? Okay, no problem. You do that, and you'll be flying high, and you'll be processing these work orders in record time before you know it. Okay, yeah, take care. Something like that, right? You go away, you got the same technical information, but you go away feeling like, wow, that guy's awesome. And I feel good about talking to them. I like talking to them. And, I'm successful. Right? That's the difference communication skills make. It becomes even more important when you have to deliver bad news. You have to say, this wasn't successful, or I can't do that for you, or, I'm too busy, I can't do that, unfortunately. the odds are that somebody is not going to like hearing that. Okay, so they're probably going to go away, and because humans are emotional beings, they're going to think, I'm upset, and I don't like him, right? That's what they're going to get out of it, right? So do they want to come to you in the future? Do they think of you and they think like, okay, I need to promote somebody. Who can I promote? Who do I want to work with on my team? Are they going to pick you? Probably not. But if you have good communication skills, they probably will pick you. They'll want to work with you. They'll want to hire you. They'll want to give you opportunities. So for that reason, if you just left it general and said like, I need some help, I need to work on myself, and I didn't know any details about you, I would say work on your communication skills. Make a great impression. If everyone you meet and everyone that encounters you goes away thinking, wow, D. Snyder is awesome, that would be a very, very useful thing. They also think like, wow, D is not only awesome to talk to, D knows their stuff and they're reliable and I trust them and I can trust them with things. And I know they're not lying to me. I know that if they say they're going to do something, they'll do it, right? All those other things come too, right? Imagine if you could give that impression to everyone that you came into contact with. That would probably be good, right? So that's something that you could start with if you don't, have any other more specific ideas. Maybe you do, but I'm just saying that's something that I think everyone can always improve with, and me included. You could like learn technical skills and stuff like that. Another thing that would be really useful to learn is networking skills. That's closely tied to communication skills, like how to talk to the people who make the decisions. And if that's coupled with great communication skills and you have you worked on your charisma and this kind of stuff, that can really open doors, right? So maybe it's food for thought. Hamza says, I'm really against getting loans from banks, but I was referring more to getting funded by angel investors. Yeah, that works differently depending on what industry you're in and where you are in the world. Like it works quite a bit differently. Generally, angel investors are often, high net worth individuals. Either they're detached from what you're doing, like it's like a rich doctor that wants to invest some of their money into more risky, high risk things like startups, or it's somebody in the industry, like the CEO of a clay mining company that's going to invest in a 2-man operation or 2-person operation from some startup founders that are going to work in the clay mining business, and they'll start by being the contractor for that CEO. You know what I mean? And the CEO is the reason why you would want to do that is because the CEO is not just a source of money. The real reason is that they're the source of information. They're advising you. They can open doors for you. They have connections. They can get you started, get you your first customers and things based on their recommendations, stuff like that. That's why you would do it. Now, if you move in those circles, great. Totally something you want to try and pursue. But if you're kind of an introvert, networking's not really your thing, you don't know anyone like that already, you don't know any rich doctors and things that are just looking for things to do with their money, I would say, all things being equal, focus on the business proper than focusing on that world. That's what I would say. The other thing about angel investors and investors in general is that the moment that you don't need them, that's when they show up. The moment that you've got it all figured out and you got the money rolling in, that's when they show up. Before that, when you really actually needed them, they're not interested because you're too risky, because you haven't got it figured out yet. You don't have the money rolling in, thus proving you know what you're doing. That's the irony of the whole thing, right? Now, obviously, there's exceptions. If you're, highly networked and you're very extroverted and you've got all kinds of connections, yes, you can definitely pursue this and it will work. But for a lot of people that are this crowd, like on the YouTube, people like me that are technical introverts, you don't do that stuff for fun. It might be just a better use of your time and resources to figure out what to do, how to make money, and start making money. And once it's rolling in, then you worry about bulking up, like growing your business. And you don't need investors. You're not spending $100,000 to get you started. You know what I mean? Like, you figure out how to do something that doesn't require that much capital outlay at the beginning, right? Like we talked about YouTube channels and things, things that you could just do with practically no cost, focus on that and making it work. And that'll be a better use of your time. Gabriel says, probably knowing basic tech skills as well, just the basics of how to use a computer. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. Knowing the basics of how to read and write also. I mean, there's so many things you could say there. D says, interesting show. I will keep watching and sharpen up my questions. Well, thank you, D. Yeah. I do this every week. Feel free to come back next week, same time. And, if you have any more specific questions, we can get into it. If you have any last questions to ask me or anything to say, now is the time. If I don't get anything in about 30 seconds, I'm going to wind this down. I'm actually going to wind this down soon anyway, but I want to thank everybody who is here. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Check out the courses I have. Check out the videos on my YouTube channel. I end up talking more about jobs than entrepreneurship stuff and business stuff because that seems to be where the demand is. More people are interested in how to get a job than how to start a company. But starting, like growing businesses is basically my core competency. That's what I'd like to talk about more. It's a lot harder to get into it because when you're talking about how to get a job, you can break it down into piecemeal, self-contained things like how to answer job interview questions. With business, it's not quite that simple. Everything is connected. So it's a bit harder to make it like little bite-sized bits of knowledge that stand on their own. That's what I found. But I do like talking about this stuff. Gabriel says, a bit of a weird question. There are no weird questions, Gabriel, just weird people. That's all you need to know. How do you avoid just staying disciplined and not be chasing the new shiny thing? In what context? Like in terms of a life goal or, you want to get down to work, but you're distracted by pleasure, this new TV show, this new video game. I have a hard time putting down my phone or putting down my video game controller. Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure I really have, the authority to answer that kind of thing. I think everyone is going to have their own take on that. I think it starts with the self-awareness to realize that, this doesn't make me happy. I think it will make me happy, so I do it, but it doesn't make me happy. I always feel like I'm a loser, like I'm wasting my time or, whatever it is, it's unfulfilling. I think it starts with that self-awareness. The more self-awareness we have, and to recognize that sooner, the more we can make a change, right? Same to you, D. D says, thank you. Have a nice Monday afternoon. And I gotta say, I saw the movie about Twisted Sister. They did it a while ago. It was called We Are Twisted Sister. And I knew Twisted Sister from their big hits in the 80s. They had a couple of big hits, We're Not Gonna Take It and stuff like that. And what's the other one? I Want to Rock, I think. But they did this movie and you think it's all about their hits and it's not. It's all about their struggles and their story long before their hits. And that was an entire movie in and of itself. So they could make another movie about their life without repeating anything, and it would be awesome. So I just want to say that. Gabriel says, yeah, there are distractions everywhere, especially in the age of social media and stuff like this. I was thinking just to create a schedule and stick by it. yeah, listen, different people are going to have different solutions. Speaking for myself, stuff like that sometimes has to come to a head. Like it has to get really bad so that it's super obvious for you to finally take some action on it. And when you take action, you're not going to do just this little tiny tweak. You're going to do a big change because you've seen it's a big problem. So it might be simple as like, I'm going to unplug my game console. I'm going to get rid of my game console, or I'm going to just, uninstall Twitter X and Facebook and, all these things from my phone, like all the games. I'm just going to uninstall everything. It's bad. It's like a cancer. It's like a narcotic, in my life that I'm addicted to, and it's unproductive, and it's taking me away from where I should be, But I mean, I'm not an expert on that kind of stuff. I mean, it would be interesting to talk to like a self-help type person that might actually be able to give like really, really good tips, in that department, knowing about your personality and your background and, the specific thing that's the problem for you. That might be interesting for everyone to learn that. But I don't see myself as any kind of authority on that. Other than what I've said. Anyway, thanks everyone. You guys are awesome. I'll be back next week with another episode of Side Hustle Ideas. In the meantime, I wish you nothing but success and pursue your goals. Check out my courses, especially that one. Okay. This one teaches you how to do networking, but that one is the business one. That would be really valuable for a lot of people that want to do this stuff. You'll learn stuff the easy way, not the hard way. I will see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves.